So sorry for the sound of cars in the background. Location is a little bit different than for my usual videos, but since I have daily schedule to upload, I will upload video today too. So today we are going to talk about goddess Hecate and the fairies and my personal experience with both. Now tomorrow I will film another video about work with Hecate and work with ancestral spirits. But for now, today we are going to theoretically explore and examine connection between Hecate and the fairies and my experience with both. So a lot of the time people think that somehow one entity rules over the fae or the fairies. The truth is that fae or the fairies are so numerous that there is no one entity which is ruling them all. They are indeed independent and really tribalistic beings. There are certain really powerful entities who rule parts of the fairies, but they are not by any means ruler of them all. So what I want to say is that fairies are not ruled by one entity, and Hecate definitely doesn't rule all of the fairies, as some people assume. Another thing I want to mention is that Hecate is definitely a really powerful divinity, but she is not, let me explain once again, she is not some kind of world over soul or supreme mother goddess or something. Hecate is really powerful goddess and really powerful entity, but she is not the most powerful being ever, as some people like to assume. And definitely I do not understand some of her devotees who claim her to be Alpha and Omega, the most powerful, the most beautiful, blah blah blah. She is definitely really powerful and really useful to work with, are really motherly and kind to some people, and really harsh when it is necessary. And she is really powerful spirit guide. But I am definitely not surprised and not impressed when some people try to tell me that Hecate is somehow female equivalent of one true god. And I don't like the concept of the one true God, and I don't believe such a thing exists. So I definitely don't subscribe to the theory that Hecate is somehow the best of all spirits. Many people revere Hecate in that manner. I definitely am not a supporter of that opinion. So my work with Hecate kinda starts again. And I am really pleased what Hecate did for me. This channel will definitely be more focused on Hecate in the future, but for now I will give short summary of my work with her, and then I will talk about fairies again. So I started working with Hecate because two really good friends of mine, Anassa Rose and one friend I am not going to mention, recommended Hecate as good spirit guide. And I started working with her and summoning her, and she kinda replaced Lucifer in my spiritual journey. Now, what she taught me is that it is not important necessarily what you want. There are paths for you which are open, and things you have to do which are necessary for you as a person to evolve and become better. And sometimes our desires are not what is recommended by that path. And Hecate will many times purposefully lead you away from the things you quote unquote want to the things you should be doing. And this is what Hecate did for me. She led me away from toxic and cancerous career, and she in numerous times told me that I should change my life path and focus on the things which are truly for me. And I finally listened to Hecate and I abandoned the toxic environment and became something else and returned my moral dignity and integrity, because now I can talk for you on this channel and nobody can tell me and blame me that I somehow just want attention to make money. I wanna use this medium to really express my opinion and to bring new things to the conversation. Now, my work with Hecate is mostly based upon two aspects of Hecate. One is her aspect as the ruler of the dead and the crossroads. And another aspect I work with her a lot is her aspect as the mother of the crippled and the poor. So those are two aspects of Hecate I work with the most. Now, Hecate has many attributes and many abilities, so I am definitely not expert on Hecate, and I am here just to share my experience with the divinity. Now, my advice to work with Hecate is to be really honest. Honesty is anything she requires, really. If you are truly honest in your will to call her and summon her, she will arrive. It doesn't matter your psychic abilities. Even if you don't have psychic abilities, she will come and she will work with you. But no matter how hard you try, if you are dishonest and if you simply are not the right type of person for Hecate, she won't come. Now, I personally don't use a lot of ritual and magical tools in my magical practice, and Hecate never complained, nor she ever requested some crazy tools or elaborate rituals. A lot of other spirits did, but Hecate never did that, which shows me that she has a really good empathy for people who cannot work with her in a traditional manner. I don't work in a non-traditional manner because I am lazy. I work in a non-traditional manner because I am not able physically to work in a traditional manner. And Hecate approached my issues with the biggest understanding of all, in my opinion. The biggest understanding of all spirits I ever worked with, and she really invested great effort to connect me with people who can show me how to work with her, having my limitations in mind. So she was definitely willing, most of all divinities, to adapt her way of operating to limitations I possess. And what it shows to me is that she is really a divinity which is adaptable and willing to solve large amounts of problems. So Hecate can be called for such a great amount of things, and she is really adaptable. There is no one specific office of Hecate as far as I know. Many people limit her to just the goddess of the crossroads, but in my experience she is much more than the goddess of the crossroads. She is really a feminine force of nature, a feminine spirit, which is through ages one of the most powerful guides for black magicians and those who practice chthonic forms of sorcery. Now, there is one advice I have while you work with Hecate, and that's that you should definitely have basic grasp of necromancy before you start working with her. That's only my recommendation. I think you should start with basic necromancy before you start calling her, because her energy tends to be dark and intimidating. If you are not accustomed to any form of dark energy, approaching Hecate at first step can be really traumatic a bit. Another recommendation I have is not to try to boss her around or command her. So there are many spirits in the modern chthonic operations, such as demons or jinn or whoever, who are accustomed to being commanded. Now, even Lilith can be commanded under certain circumstances, but Hecate, in my experience, cannot be commanded. She is definitely too powerful and too independent to be commanded or bossed around. And trying to boast and boss around to Hecate is equal to death sentence. Also, she is really an extremely kind, but you should definitely be careful how you behave, and you should definitely do your best to be respectful and mindful and honest, because from everything I experience, Hecate's wrath is definitely a sight to behold. And in my opinion, work with Hecate should be private. So a lot of people boast how they work with Hecate, but in my opinion, those people are not worthy of your time and attention, because one of the main principles of working with Hecate is that she will demand from you to keep majority of things you experience with her secret. She doesn't want your personal practice to be available for everybody to see. Now, some people like, and some spirits like to make themselves public, but Hecate is one of those who likes to be known, but she doesn't like to be overly known. She doesn't like to attract wrong kind of people. One of the consequences of work with Hecate is that you will definitely be confronted with darker aspects of yourself, but not in an aggressive way. You will become more emotionally stable. You will become more able to walk through the darkness and confront traumatic situations. And what I experienced in my work with Hecate is that she confronts you with your inner darkness, but it is not intense as when demons do that. She really guides you through those ways and through those pathways, and she really guides you through the crossroads and through those journeys, so you can be harmed as least as possible. And she is definitely a really good guy. Her advice is always right and correct, and has best intentions of practitioner in mind. She isn't demanding regarding offerings. And now, let's talk about a relationship between Hecate and fairies once again. So Hecate definitely rules some darker fairies, but those darker fairies are by far not the only fairies there. Actually, in my opinion, fairies ruled by Hecate are not even technically same as fairies referenced in other mythologies. They are really dark and kind of chthonic beings, so they are not to be approached lightly. I worked with them once, and it wasn't necessarily a pleasant experience. Now, let's talk about the fairies in general. So, what are the fairies? So the fairies are, in my experience, the spirits of nature who are protecting animals and plants. They are here to protect nature from us and other forces destroying it. And they are also protecting the streams and the rivers and the stones. They are kinda guardians and protectors of nature. Now, how it ties them with Hecate is that Hecate is also technically guardian of the veil between our world and the spirit world, which also involves protecting the spiritual aspects of nature. So that's the reason why you can work with Hecate and fairies at the same time, despite of the fact that Hecate doesn't rule over a majority of the fairies, but she can aid in fairy work because she is technically guarding spiritual aspects of nature too, due to her function as guardian of the crossroads, because through guarding the crossroads, she is also guarding the aspects of the whale, which are separating us from seeing the spiritual aspects of nature. But that whale is, according to Hecate, necessary because some people would and will use those spiritual aspects of nature for their own gain in order to destroy nature, and that would be a really terrifying thing. So that's the reason why whale exists. Now, tomorrow I will film a video about work with ancestors and Hecate, and I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you, guys.